Welcome to the Experience Project. My name is Chris Waters. My guest today is Charlotte Pedersen. Charlotte currently leads the global events team at Atlassian, bringing almost 30 years of multi-sector experience to the role. From early days with mission-driven organizations like the Lance Armstrong Foundation and Goodwill Industries of Central Texas, to designing and launching global event marketing programs and teams at Bazaar Voice, and indeed, to spending the past 4 years architecting the gold standard of the event industry, Dreamforce. Charlotte has built a career on building transformational programs from the ground up. Currently spearheading Atlassian's event marketing transformation for the AI era, Charlotte was recently recognized as one of the most powerful people in the meetings industry in the 2025 Skift Meetings Power Rankings and holds a 2023 Event Marketer Experience Award. We are also both members of the Event Leaders Exchange, a group you'll hear more about in future episodes. Her core mission is simple yet powerful: to enhance human connection and foster global collaboration through unforgettable shared experiences. Please enjoy a conversation with Charlotte Pedersen. I didn't put two and two together that you weren't in the city planning Dreamforce, which makes sense that you would be coming in regularly, coming in and out.
I definitely knew all the options, especially like trying to push, like coming out of here is great, right? Because I can leave here at 7 a.m. and land there at 9 and change. And so I could walk right into meetings. But leaving was hard. It was always a midnight or a red eye through. So yeah, I mean, I certainly played the game like between Oakland and others to try to extend the amount of hours on the ground. But
Yeah.
yeah, most of my team, I only had one person actually in the Bay Area on my team.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
No kidding. How often would you have to come into town during the course of planning?
I mean, obviously it ebbed and flowed. I would say closer in probably this time, but it was probably every 3 weeks. And then probably 4 times throughout the rest of it. But we were always distributed, and then we would meet out on the road. Like when we were doing like another multi-day paid event, we would go there because that's where everybody was. It was such a distributed team. Salesforce was great that way, and like you can work from anywhere. And honestly, that's how I got the job because they never opened up that position to being hiring outside of San Francisco or outside of California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How,
So
how
that
did you make the case for that?
I mean, I just applied. They just posted. I know, like a very wild story. Didn't know anybody in there. I knew friends of friends, but like didn't know anyone. Yeah, totally got in. My first boss was based in Denver. And then through a reorg, my last year I reported into someone that had worked in San Francisco, but had moved in COVID out to
Healdsburg.
Healdsburg. But yeah, wild story.
That's cool. That's neat. I always find it fascinating to see how people come into their various roles and the careers that they've had. Which I say you worked for the Lance Armstrong Foundation. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I started there. Well, this was in a time, so I graduated college December of '01. So September 11th had just happened, and the bubble. So Austin is like the Silicon Hills, the Silicon Valley. I like to say. So a lot of .coms around that time were starting. HomeAway had just been acquired by Expedia, that was based here. Garden.com, like a bunch of these .comers. Dell was starting to take off, and simultaneously, this like gem of Austin was starting to get discovered by the likes of like Sandra Bullock and Robin Williams and a couple of other celebrity film and musicians. And it became kind of like new money plus just like cool college town vibe. Was a great breeding ground for fundraising and doing cool events and movie premieres and the music scene and all of that. And so yeah, I started, I knew in college, wildly enough, like I wanted to be in events, and had found a small boutique firm and got them on the phone, Yellow Pages back in the day. Called them up and they said, hey, like, I was like, what does it take to be here? And they're like, we're looking for an intern. And back then, gas was like 89 cents a gallon. And it was like, sure, I could like work for free. Why not? And a lot of the foundations just didn't have like their own marketing teams or like development teams, and so they hired this boutique firm that really kind of had the hold on all of Austin and did all the cool things, from like the ballet galas, the Nutcracker stuff, to the fundraising things. And at that time, the Lance Armstrong Foundation was just getting started. I think he had just come out of his first treatment, and they were pregnant with their first son. She had a connection into the two co-owners of the group. Holland Rich Event Marketing and Strategy was the name. It was in a cute little house. And so they did the Lance Armstrong Foundation galas and fundraising for them. The Ride for the Roses they started. And then as he won, like Austin would have a celebration. So they would coordinate all of that. And then, like all the different the golf tournaments and just various other foundations would come through them. And, I started by like licking envelopes and mail merges at the very bottom of the ground there, just to kind of learn. And then a lot of fundraising stuff. I mean, I'm always mission oriented, so I just love that kind of stuff. And then stayed there until I graduated. And then obviously September 11th had happened, kind of burst our little bubble here. And, took like a random admin job that was like, we also do association management on the side. I'm like, cool, let's go for that. So just kind of continued on with my mission-based stuff, started a nonprofit, and then tech got me. The fast
Once
pace.
you land in tech, it's really hard
It's
to let
really
go.
hard. Yeah. And like I've done like a lot of cool stuff. So, yeah. Big, small, pre-IPO, post-IPO, all kinds of stuff. It's fun. It's been a fun ride.
Before landing at Dreamforce, had you had any experience working on Citywide on massive programs like that before?
Yeah. So I worked for Keller Williams Realty. Keller Williams Realty is based here in Austin. Gary Keller, obviously, is the Keller. And then by the time I had joined, they had sold, he had purchased from his partner the Williams side of it. And so they had what was called their family reunion. And their event at that time, gosh, I want to say it was like '08, '09. So like kind of financial crisis-y. They would have an annual event, and I led that. So that was going from AMD, which was like 400 events a year on a plane Sunday through Thursday all around the world, doing every, board meetings and VP forums, to trade shows, to sponsorship things, a very big variety. It was just like, we were just like throwing events at you, doing the CES, like all of the major things, to then having one event, but it was so multifaceted. So it was, expo floor for 200 sponsors and vendors. It was 300 sessions. It was 2 large keynotes. It was 18 hotel rooms. It was shuttle buses and all of the things. And the way the team kind of ran was that they would have kind of these smaller regional events that were supported at a corporate, and then as kind of those teams kind of came off, they would come into my purview. So I would kind of like hand off like, okay, you're up for food and beverage for the next 6 months on this event. So it was very much like a one team, one dream mentality there, but it was certainly exposure into like learning how impactful these events of this scale and size are into cities. And like, we matter, like their P&L, like, matters, right? Like if we don't show that they've, the city has budgeted for, if we don't show and hit those metrics, like that directly impacts their financials, right? And so there was so much learnings there for sure. And feeding and moving and educating and entertaining almost 10,000 real estate agents is also a fascinating, fascinating thing. I quickly moved back to tech.
I would imagine that real estate agents could get pretty wild. The ones
They're
that
pretty,
I know can get
yeah,
pretty wild.
they're pretty wild. They're pretty wild. Really smart, savvy, entrepreneurial group of people for sure. Passionate, go-getters, solution finders, all of that wonderful stuff. But planning for their experience and moving the masses. I mean, just just when you go from nonprofit to like, okay, we could afford a staff t-shirt, for 60 to like a staff t-shirt for 60,000. And you're like, what is the cost of that? Like these are really big decisions. So it's like, you want to stay flexible and agile and all of this in an event marketing world. But when you think about spending dollars at that volume, right, you do have to go, all right, do we need the t-shirt? Does it need to be a 4-color print t-shirt? Does it need to be the back of that in the American Apparel shirt? Like that kind of stuff. So anyways.
When you start really scrutinizing, do you need that lunch on that last day? Do you need a
Yeah.
welcome lunch? Can it just be a happy hour? Those
Yeah.
things are,
For 1 hour.
really
1 hour, 2 bites per person,
Yeah.
You really have to because of the volume. I mean, and then watching it come together, like being behind the scenes and watching them just like pour orange juice for 10,000 people.
Yeah.
It's not like one club at a time for sure. It's very, very systematic. It's pretty fascinating, but the size and scale of things, at the end of the day, it's totally about the attendee experience and that individual personalization. It just matters so much. So it's constantly, contracting and contrasting.
We will definitely get into all of that. But before we do, I'd love for you to be able to share what is a citywide to you? What does a citywide experience mean to you? And then also, what does a global moment mean to you? Start with the citywide, and then we can expand.
Right. A citywide to me is multifaceted, multidimensional, meaning that it is inclusive of multiple locations, obviously like the tactics of it. But it's also the connection and the connection and the commitment of not just the business that is putting on the event, but it's from the city leaders, from the business owners to the corporate, hotels, to the Uber drivers all the way through, right? Like that is the interconnectivity, the intersection of all of those folks coming together to welcome a group of people that can be coming from their backyards all the way from across the world. And so for me, that is what a citywide is. A global moment, there's a lot of ways you can take that. I guess a global moment for me is the representation of cultures, people, awareness, experiences at different dimensions that are coming together for a unified experience. And I think that's pretty magical when that happens.
It's
So,
definitely true. I do you sit on the SF Travel Advisory Board?
I do. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where we first met, but it's been a number of years.
Uh,
But to be able to see the volume of bodies that come together to be able to put on one event, I've always found to be absolutely fascinating, especially when
yeah.
you start getting the city leaders involved. You've got the mayor's office is included. You've got the chief of police involved. All of their departments end up activating at each of these events. Being able to see an entire city rally around basically a company pulling together their people for a period of time is super impressive. And that was one of the reasons why I had wanted to chat with you, because you obviously have some incredible experience hosting citywides, and we'll touch on Dreamforce a little bit. But I can't tell you how many times I've been hosting events and people say, let's make this more like Dreamforce. And I usually have to tell them to pump their brakes because Dreamforce is on a different level than almost any other program across the country. But it's
Yeah.
what people really hold as the sort of gold standard of how a large tech event, and you could probably cut it in a lot of different ways because it's obviously it's a client event, it's a sales event, it's a user conference. I mean, that is what it is at its core. But it's obviously on a whole different level.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think these moments mean to the clients or to the attendees, the people that are coming?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a passion for connection, right? I think they're motivated especially in a post-COVID era, right? They're motivated by this desire to foster this, genuine human connection and create lasting memories. Like at its core, that's what I think it is. Yes, there's product learnings and hands-on trainings and visionary statements and like the wow factors. But at the end of the day, I think it is truly about the human connection, that experience and building that there, whether they are coming from like their backyard all the way from several countries away other sides of the world. I think they're there to be with the people and to feed off of that energy and that magic that happens there that you can't get in your day-to-day when we're spending so many hours with the screen in front of us. I think people are thirsty for that.
What do you think about in the balance between having to fulfill the business side, the actual content that is shared, versus that creation of memories, of the creation of the experience that people come together? How do you go about that balance?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways I slice it when I think about creating those experiences. I think about, the intentional design of the experience from the very, very smallest details. They may seem small, but can be significantly impactful to the overall attendee experience. Those personalized welcome messages, those interactive moments. There's a lot of really cool things. I mean, interacting with a robot is still a wow factor, right? For so many people. I think about generating an emotional, connection, creating experiences that evoke emotion, from storytelling, even into like bringing the local culture into the event. Things that sometimes you just go, I went to Vegas and I never even left the venue, right? I mean, that's a very normal thing. Unfortunately, we do say, and that's great because you don't even realize that you've walked 17 miles in one day, some days in Vegas, right? But when you can say, yes, I came for a conference, but I met XYZ vendor, or I ate from a local farm that was brought there. I think, that creates that emotional connection. And I think there's just mindful moments that you think about when you're developing an experience, right? You want people to have those moments where they can soak in and really understand what's happening to them and open themselves up for that human connection. One of my favorite things to do on these large scale citywide events, honestly, I put my headphones in and I just walk and I just watch, and I turn my phone off or I put it in my back pocket and I just watch people connect. And to me, that is really the power of creating these experiences, these one-to-one experiences in the massive entirety of the event. It's really fun to see, somebody walking up and going, oh, is that a real butterfly? Touching, feeling, or sitting on a chair and watching people go by, or interacting with a robot, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, it's fun.
I think some of my most favorite moments on any program is doing exactly what you just shared, which is taking the opportunity to take a step back and really not focus on any of the details, but focus on the people connecting. And I have hosted a number of events all over the place, but having the opportunity, like if you're in an arena or you have the opportunity to actually kind of pull yourself away from a distance. Moscone is great for that. You can get up onto some of the bridges. I was hosting an event at the Cow Palace a number of years ago, and I went up to the very last row in the top of the seats and looked down at the 6,000 people or so that we had brought there, and just admired the fact that there's 6,000 people connecting all in one moment, and just sat there, just sort of soaking it in for a little while. And that happened, at least 10 or 12 years ago. And I still think about it. It's a moment that for me felt really special, that these people were having a shared experience and now a shared memory that I had a hand in bringing them all together.
Yeah.
And part of that is why I ended up starting this small project, because those moments have meant something to me. And I know that they end up meaning something to the people that we bring together.
Yeah. The KPIs will follow, right? We'll get
exactly
out there. We'll still close deals. We'll still see our NPS score rise. But I think at the end of the day, when you sit back and you think about the what you have contributed to society. Hopefully when we retire, we look back at what we've done. I hope it is those moments where people go, I met my husband there, or I met my best friend there, or because of that, I went on a whole new career trajectory. And it was like, that was a moment in time that you had a small part of bringing. Of course, it is based in the KPIs and the responsibility we have back to the business to deliver in. But yeah, that's those magical moments are ones that mean the most to me. And I feel like, hard to measure, obviously, but makes me feel good as a human.
We are getting better at measuring those, which is very fortunate. It's nice to be able to validate that what we do is actually moving the needle. But some of my favorite comments along the same lines are when people refer back to your events as the good old days, even though they're 10 or 15 years ago. I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad we were able to do that. It's pretty great.
Yeah, absolutely.
One another foundational question before we start breaking down some of these events, but what do you believe is the line between a moment and an experience?
Yeah. I mean, my mind immediately goes to like length of time and impact to your core, meaning a moment is a fleeting thing in time, but an experience is a memorable piece of time that you come back to, often relish, and seek to replicate over and over, right? So I think of it that way. Yeah.
I like that. I think that's fantastic. What drew you to events and experiences in the first place? You said you knew in college, which is amazing. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do in college. But what was it that drew you to them?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to start in social work. My mom is a family child therapist. She spent her career working in the schools, in crisis counseling all the way through, even to college counseling at some level. And I wanted that. There was something around the people connection and helping people in a moment of time. And she encouraged me to do some research about what that meant, because she knew for me, I love to see the ending. I love to see a moment of it all coming together. And that is a very rare moment in time in that line of work. It's very important, but it is patience over time and maybe not my area of strength. And so as I started kind of researching, what were some of the characteristics that I loved the most about what I was drawn to for that career, that line of work, it was certainly, yes, the power of connection, the ability to make change, the ability to work on something towards an end goal. And, the mission base of serving a higher purpose certainly was, an undertone in everything. And so when I started researching and looking and talking to people, event marketing in a corporate environment back in the day was not really something I saw. It wasn't, you would hear about marketing departments. You wouldn't necessarily hear about the people behind the scenes that were making these live experience come through. And so, I just talked to a lot of people about it. I was just a curious soul and understanding there. And I think the characteristics of having a project that you're working towards with the puzzle pieces of the human elements of the emotional connection, the experiential development, and then, trying to also drive business goals is a fun thing to do for my builder mentality, for my the way I present is very much bringing people together and ideas together and being in person together, and having experiences together. That's kind of what drew me to going, okay, wait, we have a start date and an end date. Cool. We are driving towards a very clear purpose because we have to have some goals aligned to this date. And we get to bring a bunch of people together to go do some cool things and learn. This feels like it's checking all the boxes. And I didn't know where it would take me. I mean, from learning how to build a trade show booth and thinking about your experience and you're experiencing in, from a 10 by 10 to a 10 by 20 to a 100 by 100, and thinking about how all of those pieces and components to work to a massive multi-day paid event with, 1,500 plus sessions and concerts and fundraising and product launches and music and all of those things. I mean, there's just so many dynamics in there and puzzle pieces that anybody with a builder mindset wants to get in and get after. And I think the beauty of event marketing enables you to do that while also being a really strong contributor to the business. People are seek emotional connection. They do business off of emotional connection to a degree. And so when you can bring those two worlds together, that feels like a total win-win. And so I've really just enjoyed that, whether it's been in high tech, real estate. I did some stuff in government for a while. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. The power of humans and coming together and being the orchestrator of that is pretty exceptional. And that checked all the boxes for me.
That's actually one of my questions. Is usually towards the end, but what do you think it is about the human connection, that human proximity of being in the same room, that changes the dynamic?
Yeah. I mean, I'd take it back to that emotional connection, right? It's picking up on energy. It's the nonverbal cues. It's the getting kind of sucked into it, right? That really kind of changes your body chemistry. What you're up for that day can just be by seeing someone smile by you, walk by you and smile can completely change your day. And so I think that when we're in person and we're getting more of that, we're vibing off each other. That's like the pun word of the year. I feel like vibing. I hear that every day, all day long. It just, it opens more doors. It helps us see things at different lenses. It puts us in a mindset that opens us up to receive human connection as well. And I think that is, back to that evoking that emotional connection is it's just the baseline for all experience design, and I just love it. I feel very nostalgic right now thinking about all that. You're gonna make me miss Dreamforce.
It's the people together. And I realized this early on in my career whenever I was struggling with someone, the personalities conflicting, that as soon as you were in the room with that person, you could iron things out, usually extremely quickly. 2, 3, 5 minutes of chatting, because you can read each other in a room that you cannot, even when you're face to face over the phone or over a call like this. You cannot read each other to the same degree, and it quite often causes conflict to continue to bubble up or boil over. Whereas when you're in the same room, I mean, one-on-one connections, in my opinion, thrive. And the more people that are in a room sharing an experience together, and you see this at concerts or sporting events, you end up creating one shared energy or one shared experience.
I mean, you're right. We do iron out so much more in person. And I think that's something I have heard post-COVID, right? It's a lot of people like the water cooler talk, right? I'm just passing when I was passing someone going from room to room or meeting room to lunch or what have you, it was like, I could solve that like this. Now I've got to have 4 hours of meetings and a deck and all of that. And we just haven't been able to, no matter how great technology has evolved, have been able to solve that. And that was part of our planning strategy for Dreamforce. Was we had inflection points where we brought lots of cross-functional either decision makers, influencers across the business for this very intense set of days to iron out, a handful of outputs and outcomes. And I would always open up with like, after our time together, you will feel like that melty face emoji. But we would have accomplished in 48 hours, 72 hours, that would take, we just don't have the benefit of time when you're planning at that scale. Well, we all never have the benefit of time when it comes to event marketing, right? But there was just so much energy and excitement and just movement and alignment on decisions that just helped enable further conversations that obviously had to happen outside of that room. But it was critical, a critical component to our success. That we talk a lot about also, I think of event leaders as quarterbacks, right? I love sports. I have two boys. They're very sporty, and we talk a lot about sports analogies in my house. So I think often about, like, creating that playbook and you're throwing that ball to and who's catching it, if you will. And when we talk about the quarterback, it's really understanding the interdependencies of everybody, right? Like, you got to know who's injured, who runs, who catches better this way or that way, if you will. And I think a lot of opportunities, just facilitating the conversation, helps you become a better partner to everyone else when you can understand what they're up against, and you can advocate in rooms when they're not there to talk about that and bring awareness. Because you do often hear when you come on site, oh, if I had known that, oh, that was the reason why, and I feel like our job really sits squarely in understanding and advocating for all of the team members, so that we can drive the project forward. And if we don't have those conversations and clearly understand what all those dependencies are across everyone, then there's going to be friction, there's going to be frustrations, and there's going to be messes. And so we have to amplify. Like I talked about earlier, in terms of the city leadership, all the way through to your front desk person, all the way into your company and out to your attendees. It's understanding the expectations and the goals that we're going after. So one of the things we would do for Dreamforce is we would, meet with the 100+ hotel leaders, and we would say, you are our attendees' first point of contact. Like, that is how important you are to their experience. Sure, they're going to get them at the airport, they're going to get in their cab, their Uber, what have you. But once they get to you, you're their first person, and they are gripping to you for information. So, offering them a smoothie and a agenda or the link, or, getting them excited and seeing our branding, all helps foster the environment that they're about to land into for a few days, right? That, when you do things like that, you're there to, oh, let's go. How do I wear your shirt, your pin? I'm going to actually read your, resume, so I understand exactly what's happening. I want to be a part of that person's experience in a positive way. To, like, all the different components that the city, that we need and lean and count on for the city, right? So from the mayor's office to our fire department, to our police department, to our municipality teams, to, who's going to be able to plug the sinkhole on a random street, right? Like, knowing all of those people and having that connected moment about, like, these are the shared goals. This is what we're doing. We're welcoming into the city with the business owners. They understand, like, the impact that this has for them, but also for the attendees that are coming there, and setting context with them. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. From understanding when the buses are running to wherever the police will be stationed, to the ambassadors that we can use. Understanding what their goals and needs are, along with our goals and needs are, along with our shared collective desired output of experience for our attendees. All of those folks need to be heard and brought together and set context with, to share with. And then across the business, it's the same thing. Understanding what product wants to deliver versus what corporate comms wants to deliver, versus what our different regions want to deliver, versus what our marketing team wants to deliver. All of those are different, points of context that need to be met, heard with, aligned with, and understood, so we can develop the best experience and really get everyone bought into delivering it, to actually actualizing it, if you will.
You had shared a really interesting example, or an interesting story of something that most people might not think about when you're taking over a city. And
Yeah.
your crosswalk example was a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about the non-negotiables for creating a citywide. We talk about authenticity, right? Every experience has to feel genuine. We talk about inclusivity, ensuring everybody is feeling welcome. We talk about sustainability around environmentals, and the practices that we are there for the long term. But safety, attendees need to feel safe. And really, when we come on site for that massive amounts of people, it should be our number one priority. Just constantly understanding the dynamics from, how they pick up their lunch to how they're going to move down the street, to where they're getting, how they're walking home, and every facet in between. And so when we took a look at something as massive as Dreamforce, and taking over that Moscone campus. It's about 2 million square feet, 35 different American football fields, if you will. So significant footprint. We noticed that the crosswalk between north and south over to west on that footprint, we were crossing about 300 people every 90 seconds, which is a massive amount of people to get across 4 lanes of traffic. But when you combine that with event goers who are very distracted on their phones, talking to people, new to a city, not necessarily hearing the cues to walk or stop, it can become very scary when you have 4 lanes of traffic that involve, city buses and massive amounts of Ubers and motorcycles and, food delivery people. And so it just became a point where we said, that doesn't feel safe. That doesn't feel secure. Despite, all of the things that we do, humans will not listen. Humans will continue to move on. And so we wanted to go how do we build a bridge? How do we avoid this area altogether? How do we need that building. We need these buildings. We can't shut down this street. How does this work? What are these bus schedules? Does this really need to be the drop-off spot for the 5 million Ubers that are coming here? And, we brought that solution, we brought that up to a handful of our city contacts, and we said, this feels like not a great idea, regardless of the event. It's just not a good idea. We don't want it hurt here. So what could we do? We looked actually at Formula One in Vegas. They would build out these kind of catwalks across the streets because they had to come up above the racetrack. So why can't we just build that? Build these temporary airwalks across the different corners. And, you get into things like accessibility. You get into things like the fact that in San Francisco specifically, all the cables, right? That wasn't an option. And so we said, all right, we've got to figure out the bus schedules. We've got to figure out the neighborhood that's around here. And we've got to figure out how to get more of a chute, we would call it, getting people into a more protective area to cross them. And, had a couple different revs at it. And what we found out through working with some of our friends in the city that are closer to the actual permitting side of it was there actually needed to be new legislation enacted to make a case to close down either the whole street or part of the street. And, it's a real big inconvenience, obviously, to local vendors and people that live in that area. So it wasn't an opportunity for us just to come in and say, big company, we're going to shut down streets. It was more of we collectively agree and align that keeping people safe is important here. So passing legislation for the city to enable us to close down 1-2 streets or reroute buses during this period of time with ample notification and, agreement across the community makes sense, right? We can all rally behind that. And there just was not one person that said no to that. We 1000% want to make sure every person that visits the city of San Francisco is safe. Especially when we have massive amounts of people moving across the street during this one specific period of time. And so we were able to pass this legislation. A ton of people were involved in this, from our corporate government affairs to public affairs agencies to various city leaders, et cetera, that helped us move this forward, signed off on it. And it has now benefited not just Dreamforce, Salesforce's event, but when the NBA came through or the NFL came through for their largest events around Super Bowl and All-Star Weekend, they were able to pick up on that too. And it became a best practice for the city to put forth when we say, hey, this amount of people coming here, we just know how humans are going to interact. Let's keep everyone safe. And we're committed in all facets and fronts, but specifically what we've seen from this corner, what we know to be true in and around the Moscone area, we feel like this needs to happen. And everybody in our town is really aligned to that. And we would like your XYZ event to also be And it's been a really wonderful thing that just started with a really basic understanding of like our guiding principles to keep everybody safe. That also means when they're on their phones going across the street and it's a red and there's a bus about to go, right? So yeah, that was a really big highlight, I think, for the city and for the movement and motion that Dreamforce now continues to pick up year on year.
That's so cool. That's a nice little asterisk in the resume to be able to say that you've impacted legislation to actually change the way a city operates. It's pretty.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people do that one for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'll get about that one.
But I think that's a really neat example of what goes into effectively taking over a city for a handful of days. Sometimes it means working at the city level, city offices level, to make sure that everyone can be safe and get into town. And I am amazed how many times throughout the course of my own career there have been never thought I would have to do that, or never thought I would become an expert in this.
Yeah.
But as soon as you work in an industry that involves people are wildly unpredictable. And that means that we have to take care of things that we never would have thought we'd have to do before.
Yeah, but it keeps it interesting, doesn't it? It keeps our builder mentality always going.
No two events are ever the same. And that's definitely why I feel like we all keep coming back to them. For an event of a citywide scale, how do you create an experience for 20,000, 40,000 people, but also think about it on the individual level? How does each individual walk away saying this was great while you're also optimizing for the 40,000?
Yeah, I think it's a balance for sure. So intentional design is definitely crucial to that, right? But sometimes those spontaneous moments lead to the most memorable experiences. So an unexpected speaker, surprised performance can really sort of elevate that event, and it can feel very personal, right? Some of the things for event marketers, right? We are very black and white. Like, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna get it done by this day. And staying in the gray, staying that agile and flexible is really, really tough for us. And so when I think about designing, especially for the masses, while also protecting the personalization, which is so critical for success, I just ask the team to like embrace that unexpected, like get it 80% there, feel really good about that. And then in our next 6, 7, 8 weeks, last stretch there, we've got to be ready to be agile. So yes, from a business side, there's always going to be a surprise product announcement or like a new messaging that gets changed or M&A that may happen. But I also encourage them to think about like the latest fad or, the trend or the newsworthy thing. So I think, when the USA women's soccer was certainly going through their experience that they went on and then obviously went on to win, that was an opportunity for like them to come on stage, and like nobody thought that they were going to come off of those celebration buses and show up on stage and like at a corporate conference, but they did, right? And that was like super cool. It wasn't necessarily connected to a product story, but it was like the newsworthy moment. I think even like the viral moments that we're seeing right now, like Hacky Sack is back or the dot.
Isn't that crazy? Hacky Sack is back. It's blowing my mind.
All the wild stuff that Will Ferrell is doing with his like promotion of his new movie, The Hawk, right? Like, how do we even, like, not even at the actual event, like that's happening now. How do we think about, and we're trying to get people to an event, right? Like, how do we think about that in our degen campaigns, our acquisition campaigns? Like, just keeping people like, wow, these people are connected to like me personally. I'm following Will Ferrell, or I'm interested in dot cakes or whatever. It's like you really start to create these personalized touches, and that's you're enabling that experience to be developed when you stay agile and flexible and relevant. Again, 80%, call it baseline, like we're going to have a vision statement, we're going to have a product announcement, we're going to have an expo floor, we're going to have some sponsors. Like there's like just some classic elements that happen, but like how do you then sort of amplify that to like what is relevant right now? I think that's the beauty of like mass scale, check, 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 and personalization, and like, oh, I see you there. That was fun. How I think about it.
I think that's a beautiful way to describe it. And I I've asked a lot of people the same question, and I almost usually receive like a panicked response, like I don't want to have any unexpected. Our job is
Right.
to manage the event. We want to control everything from beginning to end. That way, there is no opportunity for anything to go off the rails. But what you just described is a little bit more the direction that I've always adhered to, that you need to give some breathing room for people to be people, create that connection. And those unexpected moments are the stickiest moments of any of it, whether it be a corporate event or a personal experience. Those surprise moments are the ones where you actually create that genuine experience that people remember and walk away with and go home and tell their friends.
Yeah. And then they bring them back and
Yeah.
it continues to grow. But then they expect it every time. Which is a fun challenge to embrace. Like where is the fun? Where's the sticky? Where is the Instagrammable moment? What's gonna be that, how do we turn, lemons into lemonade, if you will, even. So
My
yeah.
favorite thing is to put effectively a wild card of a speaker on a
Yeah.
stage, because they could go in one direction. And there's been a lot of events where I've had my fist in my mouth as they're talking about something we don't want them to talk about. But on the flip side, when they do come up with absolute pure gold, better than anything that was ever in a rehearsal, anything that was better than anyone had hoped, those create the moments that people walk away from. Being able to see someone react genuinely or emotionally on stage is a beautiful thing. That moment of humanity makes all of it resonate with the entire audience.
Yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely true. You'll get me on any ESPN 30 for 30 story. Bring any of those stories.
Oh, they're so good.
You know.
Oh, they're so
The
good.
audience understood me, so yes. Yeah, love that.
Speaking of wild card moments, or moments that may not have gone according to plan, what is friction for your events? What is friction to creating the experience, and what is positive friction?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, friction is inevitable. You have to embrace it. You have to expect it. And you have to find the light in it, right? You got to find the bright spots along the journey. And so challenging friction could be something like, our very black and white personalities being challenged in like, I can't add a day and not have any more incremental funding. Or I can't make one concert be two. But you can. And you can figure it out, right? And so it can feel very hard and heavy friction when we have a very significant change in the agenda or the planning or the overall structure of the design that we're making. I can't lift and shift an event out of one city into another, for example. It's a different experience, it's a different dynamics. I can move cities, but I need to, what are the non-negotiables and what are the net new things we're going to go do? And so those kind of moments of friction can be really challenging and hard. It's always, anything can be done with time and money, but often neither of those are available. Right. And so that becomes those are the more challenging of the frictions. The good frictions is when you get into the sessions or the networking and you see the tinkering happen with people and you see them going, yeah, this AI thing. Oh, but it can do this. Like that is a business challenge. Like it's going to make me smarter, greater, bigger, and better for myself, for my team, for my business, for our products, etc., for our clients. So those are like the fun points of friction when it's like we kind of throw something out and we're like, whoa, see how that one lands. And then you start people reacting to it, right? So you talked a little bit about like, is that speaker going to hit? Is that opinion too controversial? It's like, let's put it out there. There's enough people here to balance however direction it's going to go. So yeah, friction can come in all shapes and sizes. It can come with, mostly often it comes with no time and no money and no resources to get things done. But I think those are the points that we love. That's what makes us so great at what we do, right? We love to build, and we love to move puzzle pieces around, and we love to think about things differently. And I think if you can just have that mindset where you know that friction will happen, you identify those obstacles, right? You discuss kind of the trade-offs and all that good stuff. You can really lead yourself into some really new frontiers of innovation and creativity. And you can see your team start to rise as you continue to kind of push them to think outside the box. And kind of what happens after all that is you have this really beautiful, improved experience and a memory that continues to go on and hooks people to keep coming back year on year again. So yeah, that's how I think about friction.
That's really cool. Embracing the chaos, embracing the friction is such a good mantra, even.
Yeah.
Certainly with all of our programs, change is inevitable. So just leaning into it.
Yeah. I mean, how many times a day do you say the word trade-off?
Yeah.
Like, that is the world we live in. And that's our job. Like, our job is to guide, right? And say, if this, then this, and then no longer this. Like, at what point are we're in, what I have often found is we're never one side or the other. We're always going to be somewhere in the middle, right? So it's a little less of this for more of that. Okay, great. Let's go. We can figure that out.
We are all master compromisers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, if we can negotiate with small children, we can negotiate with adults. I actually don't know what's harder. It may be children.
I think you're right. When you can't rationally talk to a child. Yeah. I'm there with you. My two girls, I feel like I'm in mediation or arbitration constantly.
All the time. You can eat now, you can eat later. You cannot eat it both. It's all day long. Yeah.
So we're winding down. So if there is anything that we haven't touched on regarding experiences, I would absolutely love to hear it. And the final question, though, as you kind of mulling that over, is what can others learn? Is there a takeaway from your experience? Is there a takeaway from this conversation that would make someone else's job a little bit easier?
Yeah, I would just say, I guess if I were to wrap up kind of the things that we've covered today, I would just say embrace the unexpected, leverage the planned and the spontaneous moments, because at the end of the day, you're creating those memorable experiences. Trust your gut, ask questions, stay curious, and have fun. It's really hard some days, but I promise.
It's true.
Nothing is better. I used to always tell, teams of mine, like, this is our Christmas. This is our Christmas morning when those doors open, that moment right before the doors open, it's nice and quiet. And you're like, here we go. Nothing we can change now. Let's open it up. And you see their faces and the wows. Like, that is Christmas morning to me. It feels so good. And if you can just bottle that up in those hard days and remember that, like, that is what we're doing it for. That is why we do what we do. Yes, the KPIs and the NPSs and all those things, they will all come along. But stay true to who you are, trust your gut, remember your attendees, and just continue to be relentless in your desire to deliver and create memorable experiences. There are people out here that have done it and have seen it, and they want help. Lean in, ask for help. Remember what you're doing, stay in the long game, and that Christmas morning will come. Yeah.
That is all excellent. Well, I appreciate it. You've been so generous with your time with me, not just here, but on several conversations, and I sincerely appreciate it. And this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I am rooting for you in all of your construction success. as well as launching this project on top of the massive job you have. I love your monthly updates. I love seeing what you and your team are doing.
Thanks.
You should be proud of the work you guys are doing over there. It's definitely industry benchmark. So kudos to you and your team. And I'm excited to see where this podcast takes you. This will be fun.